Hello, everybody, and welcome. Just as you may have just heard from the recording, we are planning to record the session today, if that's okay with people, because we have a few colleagues that weren't able to attend due to teaching, etc. I just wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Holly Burkett. I'm one of the co-directors of the Work Inclusivity Research Centre here at the University of Birmingham. The research centre is made up of a group of academics and associate members from industry, third sector, who work together on research and engagement designed to understand and improve experiences of inclusion in the workplace. So we run quite a lot of seminars and workshops like this around diversity and inclusion, all kinds of topics. Most of them are accessible, so if you want to learn any more about the Research Centre, please just drop us a line. So our Zoom seminar today particularly is going to explore the experiences of LGBTQ plus parents nationally and internationally. And we have a number of excellent speakers. So first of all, we'll hear from our own PhD researcher, Laurie Evans, about her work with Aviva, exploring the experiences of their LGBTQ parents and parental policies. And then we also have Daniel Clark-Bland, the interim head of Project, Programme and Portfolio Office Management at Aviva and co-chair of the Aviva Pride, who'll discuss Aviva's experiences on that project and some of the future actions related to that project. And then we're also very happy to have Professor Henny Boss joining us today from the University of Amsterdam, who's going to talk about the international project that she's currently leading in this area, examining the experiences of lesbian and gay parents with surrogacy and sperm donation, which Laurie is also involved in, and the Work Inclusivity Research Centre is supporting. So thank you so much for joining us today. And as I say, please contact us if you want to learn any more about the Research Centre. But I'll now hand over to Laurie to pair the rest of the session. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you, Holly. So as Holly said, my name's Laurie. I'm a PhD student at the University of Birmingham, based in Birmingham Business School. And then in April this year, I carried out a project, an ESRC IAA funded project with Aviva to look at their experiences of parenting and parenting policy by LGBTQ plus employees at Aviva. So the project was carried out for 3 months from April to June last year, and it took place with Aviva. So Aviva, a UK leading savings, retirement and insurance company with core markets in the UK, Ireland and Canada, and they employ around 29,000 people in the UK. The project was a partnership with Aviva Pride. So we connected with Pride Network members at Aviva, and they're an employee network and community for LGBTQ plus employees at the organisation. And it aimed to understand and identify any areas for improvement of Aviva's parenting policies and LGBTQ plus employee experience. Look at the benefits that employees in Aviva are gaining and help them support them in their journey towards a more inclusive workplace. Aviva are a best practice organisation, so they recognise that being best practice, they should be engaging with work to help them further their policies and improve their current practice so that they can lead the way for competitor organisations. So in the study I carried out interviews about 30 minutes long via Microsoft Teams with 11 participants, and they were all voluntary, recorded and transcribed before I analysed them. And I wrote all the findings up into a report, which highlighted what's going well at Aviva, any areas for improvement, and I put forward some recommendations for them. I then worked with Aviva to develop an action plan alongside the recommendations and any current work that Aviva's carrying out. So I'll briefly take you through some of the highlights, some of the areas for improvement and the action plan, before passing on to Daniel Clark-Bland from Aviva, who's going to talk you through some of Aviva's experiences with the project. So these are just some quotes that came out of the interviews, which highlight what's going well at Aviva as an LGBTQ plus inclusive employer, an employer that looks after its employees who are parents. So Aviva Pride is a very visible part of the organisation. Aviva as a company offers life-changing policies that parents can make use of. And they're seen as a really progressive company as well by their employees. So there were 3 key themes that came out of what's going well at Aviva. So employees see Aviva as a parent-friendly employer. They have inclusive parenting policies that are used by parents who became parents in a number of different ways. So I spoke to parents who'd become parents through surrogacy, through sperm donation, through adoption, through blended families with stepchildren, or became parents within a previous heterosexual relationship. And Aviva goes beyond the statutory requirements of an organisation. So they offer a year's parental leave with 26 weeks paid leave. And that's regardless of your sexual orientation, your gender, or how you became a parent. So they're really going above and beyond statutory requirements and what's offered by competitor organisations. Employees felt that Aviva have an LGBTQ plus inclusive environment. They felt comfortable being their authentic selves at work. And there's a lot of LGBTQ plus visibility. So employees wear pride lanyards, the pride flag is flown at company offices, and there are visible pride allies throughout the organisation. And the Pride Network is also very active and visible at Aviva. So they organise multiple events throughout the year for a range of different people and backgrounds to get involved with. And on the whole, employees saw Aviva as a progressive company. So as I said, they are a best practice organisation, and the employees felt like they were treated equally regardless of their sexuality, the way of parenting, or their family structure. And they felt supported by management and by HR. My key recommendations fell under 4 key themes: language, communication, lived experience, and visibility. So on the next slide, I'll talk through how I went about actioning this into an action plan, but I'll just talk through some of the key recommendations within these 4 categories. So within language, it was recommended that Aviva ensure there's gender neutral language throughout all their policies. And that might mean making changes to policies on an individual basis to include the correct pronouns for who that individual was. To provide simplified versions of each policy to make sure that they were quick and easy to understand for employees. And then small changes like including a greater number of sexualities, or allow employees to self-identify on employment forms, and allow employees to declare more than one disability or long-term health condition. In terms of communication, employees were sometimes unclear where to access policies, so it was recommended that an LGBTQ plus parenting page was set up on the employee intranet so that they could easily access information, guidance, and policies that were available to them. And then it was recommended that managers might receive training on how to communicate and interpret these policies. The lived experience category looked at how employees experience their LGBTQ plus identity, but also their parental identity at work. And it was suggested that training was provided on LGBTQ plus awareness and specific training to tackle any microaggressions or heteronormative assumptions that employees might come across. There is a reporting process at Aviva to report anything like that, but it was suggested that this is made a bit clearer so employees know where to go and that they'll be supported if they do come across any of these. And in terms of Aviva Pride, they put on a lot of events for LGBTQ plus employees, but some interviewees would have liked to see a greater number of events for LGBTQ plus parents specifically. Then finally, looking at visibility, several employees brought up that they'd like to see an increased visibility of LGBTQ plus employees, especially trans employees. So I did speak to Aviva a lot about this, and we need to recognise that this is a delicate situation. Employees ideally need to self-select into these opportunities rather than be approached and selected based on their appearance or who they are and who they identify as. So I recommended increasing the visibility of LGBTQ plus employee experiences rather than their image. So that might be through the promotion of this study and the findings, or any anonymous LGBTQ plus employee testimonials. So I then worked with Aviva to create an action plan of how we can put about these recommendations and how they might be able to feasibly action them. So they were split into the 4 categories that the recommendations were based on, and all of these steps are already underway at Aviva. So they have already ensured that there's gender neutral language across all their policies. Employees can declare more than one disability now. Managers are receiving training on communication and interpretation of the policies. The reporting process is being advertised more and being made clearer, and Aviva Pride are planning to provide a greater number of Pride events that are specifically for LGBTQ plus parents. And Aviva are trying to increase their visibility of LGBTQ plus employee experiences and increase the visibility of role models in senior positions who might be using these LGBTQ plus policies and parenting policies. So our next steps are to implement the action plan. We're going to be feeding back the findings in the report to the Pride Network and anybody who participated in the study through Aviva Pride. And we've organised a 1-year review to take place next summer with Aviva and the University of Birmingham to review what action has been taken, if there's anything else that might need to be action that was based on the recommendations in the report, and how Aviva found the experience and how they've learned from it. So I'm now going to pass on to Daniel Clark-Bland, who's Interim Head of Project, Programme and Portfolio Offers Management at Aviva, and he's also co-chair of Aviva Pride. He's just going to speak to you about Aviva's experience of the project. So over to you, Daniel.
Thanks. I'm hoping I'm off mute, which will be a really good start. So hi, as Laura says, my name's Daniel. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Interim Head of PMO and MI at Aviva and Aviva Pride co-chair. I'm also a parent to a 3-year-old son, Theo, and husband to Joe. So as Laura's already said, Aviva is pretty well regarded in the industry for its parental policies and actually people-focused policies and people-focused culture in the round. And I thought it was just interesting maybe to give you a little bit more information about some of those things that we already enjoy. So as Laura says, an equal parental leave policy, taking gender out of the equation to drive greater inclusion, which is fantastic. And I think we were the first, if not one of the first, to implement the standard parental leave. Interestingly, recent stats for us showed that we're about a 50-50 split between men and women using the leave. And actually, the majority of men now take a full 26 weeks, which is fantastic. Other things that we enjoy are half a day's leave for when your child first starts school, recognising that this is a really important time. And so a bit of time to get ready and get them off, take some photos by the gates, etc. is something we offer. And we've also got a really inclusive carers policy that it includes allowances for urgent time off for dependents, compassionate leave. We've also got flexible working procedures, unpaid leave options, as well as a plethora of support services, including access to counselling for you and your loved ones. So as I say, just to demonstrate how people focused our culture is. So as Larry also said, there's always room to learn and grow, which is why we were thrilled to work with Larry and the team at University of Birmingham on this project. The project itself was really well run. It felt like a really safe space and a really valuable way to spend an hour of time with Pride parents. And I know that the parents that took part got a lot out of the experience, being able to contribute directly to how we keep on improving. I think the interesting thing was when we issued the call for participants, there were actually about 75 other people across the organisation in our Pride distribution list that were already on parental leave, so were not able to take part in the study because they were off being great parents. As Laurie said, various opportunities identified when we have the presentation back, and we've committed as part of 2022 in our back book of work to look in more detail at some of the findings in Laurie's output, but we've already kicked off a number of pieces of work to make sure that that our Pride parents know that we've listened and we've heard what's important to them, and we've got some steps underway to move that forwards, with a chance to loop back around with Larry in the University of Birmingham to see where we've got to and refine our areas of focus for the rest of 2022. That's it from me. Back to you, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So I'm just going to pause briefly if anybody had any questions about the Aviva project before I move on to introduce our next guest speaker. If you wanted to unmute yourself or pop them in the chat, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, hi, Jo.
Hiya. So my name's Jo Jubilee from the University of Birmingham. I've got a question for Daniel, if that's okay. One of the things we're always told is that men are less likely to take up shared parental leave because of concerns around career, and there's a real cultural problem around that. I was just wondering how you combated that at Aviva, or whether people experienced it as a problem.
Yes, a really good question. And I think, to be honest, when the equal parental leave was first introduced, it really was evident. And I think it was evident in the length of time that people still felt comfortable to take as a dad. That said, the stats are now the other way. So how have we worked to combat that? Visibility is, I mean, it just is the key thing, isn't it? Having senior stakeholders talking openly about the policy, and we have a lot of we have an internal communication method just for people leaders in the organisation, which is a weekly update, Leaders Essentials. So we made sure that there was representation in Leaders Essentials, talking to the benefits and the reasons why we should be encouraging. So I think visibility for everybody, but really targeting our leaders as well to encourage and make it a landscape that was less problematic for people in that space. People felt less stressed about making that decision, because really family is like the ultimate job, isn't it? Like, all this comes and goes. Your family is your family. And I think Aviva being a real, like a family and people focused culture, I think it was a natural piece of progression. So I think, yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
We've got a question from Mark in the chat. So, I'm intrigued by the management training, as I found that line managers are major gatekeepers in my research on parents at work. Can you advise what major messages you tried to convey to line managers? So I'm not involved in the line manager training. I'm not sure if, Daniel, you know what kind of thing gets passed on to the line managers at Aviva.
Yeah, so again, the statistical, there is statistics that underpin the benefits of a more engaged and happier workforce, and so I don't have all the stats to hand, if I'm being honest, but there are statistics that we've used in terms of an engaged workforce, a workforce that enjoys flexibility and people-focused policies ultimately stay with an organisation longer and are happier, and to be flexible in return, and have greater scores of pride in their work and in the organisation. We also do quite a decent bit on allyship training anyway, and allyship in all forms. So at Aviva Pride is one of 7 communities that are employee resource groups. So one of them being, and so a couple of the other ones pertinent to this call being generations. So looking at the different challenges that different generations of our workforce come across, and also carers. So acknowledging the different the difference in caring roles, be that a parent, be that someone who is caring for an elderly relative, be that someone who checks in on the neighbour. All of these things are still caring roles. So I think between the different employee resource groups and the importance that the organisation places on those, I guess really it is in the bones of the organisation. It is cultural. Do we get it right in every single manager, in every single team, in every single part of the business? Probably not, but we, as Larry said, we have a speak up process, and Pride has a confidential mailbox, and if there was ever a problem or concern, part of my role as co-chair is mediation, and really happy to dive into those conversations with leaders to understand what the root cause of the problem is, or why there may be some hesitance, and work to resolve it, and ultimately flag if we're not satisfied with the outcome. So culturally it's in there, but we also have some really robust ways to flush out and deal with when it isn't being applied in the way it should be.
And then we've got a question from Crystal. It says, I imagine a positive culture from the top helps with managers being on board. So from my perspective in the project, we did work really closely with Anthony Fitzpatrick, who's head of colleague experience and employment policy at Aviva, who really helped drive the project. And we worked with his team at colleague experience as well to come up with the action plan. So that did really help, having someone in a senior leadership position push the project as well.
And we've, to add to that, like we're really lucky that our Chief People Officer's just been named in the Outstanding Allies list, again for the, I think, 3rd or 4th year in the row. Previously, our UK Life Chief Executive Officer is an out and proud woman. So again, it really is in the DNA. Like, we really do live the diversity and inclusion, way of working, and we understand the values. And I think so we've always had the acknowledgement and direction from the top that the benefits to working in an inclusive organisation. So we reap the benefits of that.
And to answer your question, Crystal, on fertility journeys. So I know from a couple of my interviews, I spoke to people who were provided time off to carry out fertility treatment and to go IVF. So I know that they were supported in that through Aviva. So I'm not sure about how it would, the other things about miscarriage and childlessness, but I did speak to people who'd been supported when adoptions fell through or fertility treatment hadn't worked. So there was that definite culture going on. Fab. So I'm going to hand over now to Professor Henny Bos from the University of Amsterdam, who's leading an international research project which examines the experience of lesbian gay parents who've become parents via surrogacy or sperm donation, to talk to us a little bit more about that research. So just pass on to you, Henny, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, thank you. I have to see where my presentation is. Sorry for that. Let's see, it will take a few minutes to, I thought that it was open, but it is not open anymore. So sorry for that. It's somewhere on my drive, so it will take a few minutes. Here it is. Oh, maybe it's still in my downloads. Yes, it's here. Okay, I found it. Sorry for this. So yeah. Okay. Yes, I think you can see my presentation now. Eh? Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Laurie, for the invitation to tell you something here about my research and the new research line within my chair, and my chair is about sexual and gender diversity in families and youth. And today, the focus of today, so the focus of today's presentation is on unique socialization processes in lesbian and gay parent families. Well, this is a research topic that I'm very interested in, and why I find this a very interesting topic. For giving an answer on that question, I have to tell you something about the two research approaches that we can see in studies on lesbian and gay parent families. And that is a between difference approach and a within difference approach. What does it mean? If we're looking at the between difference approach, it means that there's the studies are making comparison between same-sex two-parent families and different sex two-parent families. And these studies were prompted by the public debate over whether the same-sex families are different from heterosexual two-parent families in parenting competencies, but also, of course, in the child outcome, so the well-being of the children. However, these studies were also driven by to get more knowledge, also more theoretical knowledge about the understanding of what is more important, the family structure or family processes on the child's well-being. Well, all these studies found the same result, namely that there are no significant differences between the offspring in same-sex and different-sex parent families when we're talking about the well-being of the children. Not when they are young, when they are in young age, but also not when children are in their adolescence, and also not when the children are in the life stage of emerging adulthood. Well, all these studies are done with the help of most of these studies are done with the help of the LGBT community. So the recruitment took place with their help. So there are convenient samples, and so there might be a bias in the findings because the parents didn't know that it was about their family structure and about the well-being of children in same-sex parent families. However, there were also several studies based on national samples, studies on children's well-being and child rearing in general, and with a combination of the answers, with a combination of several questions, it is possible to see if it is a same-sex parent family or a different-sex parent family. And also here we found the same findings, so no significant differences in the well-being of the children in same-sex parent families in comparison to different-sex parent families. And I'm not so surprised about that finding because we know that there are three important family components that are important, significant, important for a healthy child development. And that is the psychological well-being in the most broadest way of the parents, the quality of the parent-child relationship, but also the children's wider social world and individual characteristics. And when we're looking at the first aspect, so the psychological well-being of the parents, we see several studies that there are no significant differences in the psychological well-being of these parents in comparison to parents in heterosexual two-parent families. For example, in this article, you can see the well-being of and parental stress measured among a group of lesbian mothers, heterosexual mothers, in two-parent families and single-parent families. And the only significant difference that was found in this study is that the well-being of the single mothers was a little bit lower, but significantly lower, and there was more stress in the group of single mothers. This is a study that we did in the Netherlands among gay fathers who did get a child with surrogacy. We looked at parental stress, anxiety, depression, and partner relationship satisfaction, so all kinds of aspects of psychological well-being, and we didn't find any significant differences between the groups and the parents. When we're looking at the quality of the parent-child relationship, this is a study that we did based on such a national sample. And we found that the lesbian mothers in two-parent families in comparison to the heterosexual mothers in two-parent families showed less stress related to being the feeling of being a good parent. So that was higher on the heterosexual mothers in two-parent families. And some studies on emotional involvement of the parents in child rearing found that the lesbian two-parent families are more emotionally involved in relation to child rearing than the parents in heterosexual two-parent family. So this is a study where we looked at that in several ways with pencil paper questionnaires, but also with looking at the interaction between the child and the parents, and also the parents filled in a daily diary. And the only thing you can see here that what was found, well, mainly found was that the lesbian co-mother did it better as a parent in comparison to the heterosexual father. This is a similar study was done by Susan Golombok, And you can see here the findings. She looked at the expression of warmth in the parent-child relationship, the emotional involvement, overall parenting quality, and things like that. And as you can hear, she found some significant difference, but most of them are in favor of the lesbian mother families. Well, regarding to the last one, last aspect, what is important as a predictor of children's development is the broader society of the children. This study done in Belgium, they looked at social acceptance and friendship in lesbian mother families. So what the children told them, children were 10 years old in lesbian mother families and heterosexual two-parent families, and they found no significant difference in social acceptance or in friendship relationships. They also did ask the children, do you sometimes get teased at school? And you can see here the findings. The children in lesbian mother families reported a little bit more that they were teased, but this was not a significant difference. There was a follow-up question, and that follow-up question was about, do you sometimes, was an open-ended question related to why they were teased. And what they found was that children in both family types were teased because of their clothes, their physical appearance, their intelligence, or that they were in love with someone. But what they also found that the family-related incidents of teasing were only mentioned by the children from lesbian parent families. Also in the Netherlands, we did a study in comparison to the US, in which we found that the children in the US reported much more what we call homophobic stigmatization. So being teased because of having a lesbian mother than the children in the Netherlands. So it might also, you have also see all these findings in a cultural context. Well, this is all about the between difference approach, but there are some shortcomings on this between difference approach. One of the shortcomings is that the heterosexual parent families are serves as a benchmark against which other families are measured. So in this approach, it is more or less that the heterosexual family is the norm in which we are comparing other family types. Another shortcoming is that there is no focus on the diversity and unique processes that are related of being a same-sex parent family. Because the heterosexual parent families do not have these experiences. So for example, and that's something that I will focus now from here on, is that within difference approaches also putting attention on experience of homophobic microaggressions, homophobic stigmatization, and the heteronormative society. This is a study that we did in the Netherlands, and you can see a lot of people are thinking that in the Netherlands is everything the best when we're talking about same-sex parent families. But as you can see here, according to the mothers, but also according to the offspring themselves, they, I think, a very large group are saying that they have experiences with heteronormative reactions or with homophobic stigmatization. We also know that, and that's not only from the studies in the Netherlands, but also in Italy and in the US, that those who are reporting more of these homophobic experiences, homophobic stigmatization, also are reporting more internalizing and externalizing problem behaviors. Although when we compare it with heterosexual people, of heterosexual offspring from heterosexual parent families, we don't see any significant differences. But parents can prepare the children on how to deal with heteronormativity in our society. We did ask it in the Netherlands in a group of adolescents, and about 1/3 said that the parents did prepare them on the heteronormative society. And we also found that the association between homophobic stigmatization and problem behavior was only significant for those who reported that their parents did not prepare them on the heteronormative society. yeah, what is that? Preparing on heteronormative society. Well, also here we included an open-ended question, and you can see here the answer, well, the categories that we found in the answers of the offspring. So giving advice, explaining, and normalizing. Well, I think with this background, I think it's not very surprising that I was very interested in this article written by Batalan, Rachel Farr, and David Brodzinski. And they developed an instrument to measure the sexual minority parent socialization belief skills. And these two skills, preparation for bias and cultural socialization, is based on a similar skill regarding to ethnic minorities. Well, the preparation for bias means that, for examples from items in that skill, so the preparation for bias is really to tell and to prepare your child on the homophobic stigmatization and heteronormative society, and cultural socialization is showing your child that being a different family and a family with two mothers or two fathers is also something that you can be proud of. So it's all about pride. So based on this article, I thought, well, let's start doing a study on this, and not by my own, because I really I like to work together with other people, especially other people from other countries. So we started an international team, and this is the first people that were involved in this project. So it's someone from Israel, Italy, Belgium, and me from the Netherlands. And I should also say here that all of the team members are working together with students, so we couldn't do this study by ourselves. So really need the students to help us with it. And of course, recently we could include Laurie, who is also setting up this study in the UK. So thank you very much, Laurie. And also in Germany, Mirjam Fischer is also going to join us. So there will be 2 other countries in which we are collecting data. This is some preliminary findings from the 4 countries, so Israel, Italy, and the Netherlands. Belgium did not have enough, at that time, have enough participants. Here you can see the characteristics of that sample. And for, well, this preliminary findings, I was interested in other differences between lesbian and gay parent families on these socialization belief skills, and other differences between the countries, because I thought in the countries where these families are not so, where the society is not so supportive of these families, it might be that the socialization beliefs are more important for the people than in countries where it's more accepted. Here you can see for the 3 countries, but also separate for gay father and lesbian mother families, the mean scores on the preparation for bias and the cultural socialization belief skills. And we did not find a significant difference between the countries. Also no significant differences between the gay father and the lesbian mother families. And I should say here that it is, the study is also unique because in each family type, so for each family, we have both parents who filled in the questionnaire. That also means that we did have to take that into account in our statistics that we did, but here you can see the findings. Then another question that I was interested in is what kind of environmental and personal aspects are significant predictors for these 2 socialization belief skills. Environments such as experiences of homophobic stigmatization and LGBT community sense, and personal, I was interested in a general parental efficacy. Regarding to the preparation for bias, we found a significant association with homophobic stigmatization and LGBT community sense. This in terms that people who did experience more homophobic stigmatization also found this preparation for bias more important, and also people who were very involved in the LGBT community and really felt being a member of that community also scored higher on this preparation for bias. So preparing your child on homophobic stigmatization in a heteronormative society. And the similar, or exactly the same associations were significant for the cultural socialization belief. So showing your child that your family diversity is something that you can be proud of. So also here, those who did have more experience of homophobic stigmatization showed the children more often that the family diversity is something to be proud of, and also those who were more involved in the LGBT community also showed the children, told your children more often that the family diversity is something about being proud of. Well, the next step, including data from Belgium and the UK, of course, and when I did make this presentation, I did get an email from Germany that they were also interested to join the study. The study is now there at the Ethical Commission. We will continue the data also in all the countries that are involved in the study till the mid or the end of next year, so 2022. And of course, it's very interesting to look at whether the association between homophobic stigmatization and children's problem behavior is different for the different levels of preparation bias and cultural socialization. So are these unique socialization processes really also buffering the association between buffering the effect of homophobic stigmatization? Well, all the data is collected in, and I'm afraid also in 2022, the data will be collected in a time that we still have to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we included in the questionnaire some COVID-19 related stress items. So I think it's very important also in our analysis to control for that. I'm doing this research about the unique socialization processes because I think I'm 100% sure there is a lot of strength and resilience in these families. And it's also that I think it's important not only to look at problems in these family types, but also at positive things, and strength and resilience is something positive. And that there is a lot of strength and resilience you can see on this slide. This is a slide, a picture from 4 years ago at Amsterdam Pride. The Amsterdam Pride is always every year. Well, of course, the last 2 years it was not there, but it is Amsterdam Pride is always on the canals in Amsterdam, and all kinds of LGBT organizations in the Netherlands are there with an own boat. And this was the first time that Meer dan Gewenst, more than wished for, that is the platform for gay and lesbian parents and the children, were also there on the boat, and there were, I think, 35 children also there, and they had the day of their life because they could show the whole world that they are also normal and just families. So there was a lot of pride on that boat, and the children were very proud. And they were also very proud because they did win the first prize. So that's also nice to see. So I think I always like to end my presentations with this slide, because I think this slide shows that there is a lot of resilience and strength within these families. Well, thank you. I'm open for questions now. We can do the Q&A now, but if there's not time enough, you can also send me an email if you're interested in the studies that we are doing in the Netherlands, and also, of course, this international study.
Thank you so much, Henny, for sharing the prelim findings with us. If anyone does have a question for Henny, if you want to unmute or pop it in the chat, we've got time for a couple of questions. Oh, hi, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Henny. That was really, really interesting, absolutely fascinating, and obviously really important work. This is a kind of micro question in a way, but I always think it's fascinating when people interview or questionnaire two parts of a couple to see how much agreement there is between the couple. And I just wondered if you'd done any analysis on that at all.
No, not yet. But that are some of the follow-up steps that we have to do. So looking whether there are differences in the socialization, whether there's some agreement between the in a couple regarding to these socialization beliefs scales. And not only that, I think it's also very important to look at the answers on the open-ended questions, because I think it's not only important to show figures and whether or not something is significant in statistical terms, but I think it's also good to focus on the on what people are saying and telling us about these scales.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be really fascinating.
Yeah. I think we should. Yeah, what I already said in my presentation. I think it's still important, and also in a lot of countries, it's still important to do studies based on this between difference approach. But I also think we should go further. We really should move further than that, and that's the reason why I think it's important to look at the diversity in these families, and then especially in the diversity in resilience and what that means.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Did anyone else have any other questions? Otherwise, I will. If there weren't any more, I'd like to thank Henny and Daniel for both coming along and speaking and sharing their experiences. Daniel, your experiences with the project, and Henny, your research findings. And the slides will be sent out to anyone registered to the event. And there has been a recording, so if anyone was unable to attend, we can send out the recording as well. And there's some more work seminars coming up, so just keep an eye out on your emails. But thank you all for coming along and attending and listening to the project.
Well, thank you, Laurie and Joe, for organizing it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for your time at Aviva.